Hello, in this video I'm going to go over damage types and how you can figure out what type of damage you are doing on your build with your skills and all of that. So let's get right into it. If you've not used the Battle Scrolls add-on, that's going to be one of the biggest tools that I'm using in this video. I highly recommend you check it out. I will link the video I did about that add-on in the description. If you haven't checked that out, I recommend looking at that. Just a heads up, if you've not used this and you're worried about other people seeing your DPS numbers, you can go into the Battle Scrolls add-on itself, go to settings, and come down a little ways here where it says group meter, and you can turn your numbers off if that's something you don't want to display to other people. You can still benefit and get value out of this add-on by downloading it and using it just on a combat dummy, just to buff the damage that you, or I should say analyze the damage that you are doing on your build. So I'm going to showcase and look at specifically the Mages Guild scribing skill here, because I think this is a really good instance of where this could be confusing to look at and might mislead people and might make it so it's hard to figure out what kind of damage you're actually doing on your build. And so let's get right into it. This right here, it says area of effect damage, and then if you look down in here, I've got the flame damage with the lingering torment script on here. So that's both direct damage and damage over time. So you're going, okay, well, which one do we slot? I mean, what is this? So why is the Battle Scrolls add-on good? This is easy mode and a cheat mode for figuring out what you're doing on your build. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to hit this skill. I'm going to let it expire, and then we're going to look and see what it did. So there, we just did that. So we're going to let this just sit there on the dummy until this dot expires. We got 12 seconds to go on this. And then when this finishes, we will go into the Battle Scrolls add-on and analyze what it says. Well, there we just procced burning there to close it out. And there we go. We'll close that. And now we're going to go into the Battle Scrolls add-on and we're going to analyze the damage in the damage window here. Now, as you can see, the skill itself in the tooltip, when you look at this, it calls as an area skill because that's where the target is. But it's doing both instant damage or direct damage and damage over time as well. So how do you figure out what to slot on your build? Well, if you do this on the Battle Scrolls add-on, you can take a look at this right here. It gives you a breakdown of direct damage versus dot. So if you're trying to figure out either or, then you clearly want to lean into damage over time. And then in terms of AoE and single target, you clearly can see this is a single target skill. So why is that? It's because it doesn't hit in an AoE. So let me swap this out for the back bar to be an Inferno Staff, and then we'll change the back bar skill to Blockade. So why is Blockade a true area of effect skill? Okay. When I lay this down, the effect itself is on the ground. That is a true area of effect skill. And these guys are standing in that area. So when I lay this down, that is a true area of effect. Now, if you proc burning on those guys, we'll just look at that battle scroll really quickly. There's the 5 target dummies. And as you can see, I did proc burning on a little bit of them. But as you can see, the single target damage is only 2.6%, where the AoE itself is 97. And of course, the damage over time is 100% because that's what this skill is. So when you look at the Wall of Elements, it also has area of effect, whereas this says area. Their targets are both the same, and they both do damage over time, but when you hit the Mages Guild Scribed skill, like this, and you let it go through all the way, we'll look at this. As you can see, the effect is not on the ground. It's on the enemy themselves. And that is going to indicate that it is a single target damage. Single target is also going to be your predominant use if you're switching over to the Shattered Paths Signet. Status effects are single target. The only exception to that is possibly going to be disease damage that hits in an area of effect. So now let's look at that multiple skeletons with that. And as you can see, it's single target, not AoE like the Wall of Elements is. And it's also predominantly dot damage because most of the damage that it does is from that lingering torment script. The upfront one doesn't compete with the damage over time that it does in the 22 seconds. So what am I suggesting? Well, if you're on your build and you're trying to figure out, you might have a skill of sorts to hit that you're trying to figure out what your build is doing. So what you can do is run a parse on stuff and figure out what type of damage you are actually running by just going through and hitting. You can either hit multiple dummies. I would suggest that you don't do a pack to figure out your entire parse like that, because what it's going to do, it's going to really make it look like you've got some serious goofiness going on. I would recommend that you go in and do, as you can see, most of it is area of effect here rather than single target. So I'll just do one more of these and we'll hit everything here. And we'll just let maybe 2 or 3 beams go off and see what type of damage we have hitting. Okay, so I'll stop that. And now we'll look at that. Okay, and as you can see, the single target dropped and the AoE went through the roof. So it depends on what you're running on your entire build, but you can come down here and check your direct damage versus damage over time, and then your AoE versus single target. So you don't want to set your CPs based on just one skill. You want to check all of them together and run your entire parse and see what you've got going on your build. That's going to help you figure out what type of damage that you're running in terms of what CPs that you need to slot here. You're going to want to slot whatever you're doing damage the most of the time. Also, with a build that maybe you're not doing at least 50% critical chance damage, you may not want to slot fighting finesse because you're not going to crit as often. If you're doing less than 50% critical striking, then Wrathful Strikes is likely going to be a better push for you because you're going to do standard damage more than critical damage. So that is something to really focus on and pay attention. Now, one more thing before I close out the video. If you don't have access to the Battle Scrolls add-on and you're trying to figure out what type of damage you're running, another way you can look at this is you go into the help menu here, the tutorials, and then you go into this very first one called Player Basics. And you're going to want to come all the way down. If you go all the way to the bottom and then come up one, the combat text is really helpful because this is going to tell you what type of damage you're doing. You've got direct damage is just standard white, and then you have a yellow with an exclamation point when it's critical damage. Damage over time is orange, and then if they block it, it'll have an asterisk, or if it's absorbed, usually that means they have resistances left. It'll have the parentheses there, and then there's healing, and then any incoming damage that you take is displayed like this. This is really going to tell you how much, or I should say, what type of damage you're doing. If you don't have the battle scrolls add-on, it'll help you figure that out. So, in closing, I would highly recommend you do at least a couple of parses on a regular dummy, figure out what type of damage you're doing total, and isolate that, and then you'll be able to buff your build properly. Also, if you do this before you put any gear sets on that are going to really change anything, if you just run just a bunch of random stuff, you can figure out what type of gear sets you can look at to buff what you are actually running. For example, Tideborn is for direct damage, Deadly Strike is for damage over time. There's another set in, I believe it's from the Cauldron, that buffs area of effect. We'll just look at that really quickly. Dagon's Dominion, this gives weapon and spell damage to your area of effect abilities. That's something to look at there. If you're switching over to the new mythic, the Shattered Path Signet, just keep in mind that status effects are single target for the most part. One little caveat here we're going to look at here. We'll go into the inventory, go up to where it shows your Mundus. Look at the bottom screen here. It says view more info. Then you're going to go up here to status effects. I think it's towards the top. There it is. Everything here is single target with one exception. If you come down here to disease, you'll see it hits in an area of nearby enemies. So it's not single target that deals that damage. So just keep that in mind. Virtually everything else on here is single target. So if you're switching over to a Shattered Path Signet build, once again, don't take my word for it. Do a parse and verify so that you know exactly what your build is doing, what type of damage to buff, and this is going to help you increase the damage on your build exponentially, because you can then figure out what you need to lean into, and it will make everything more potent on your build. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it very much. I will see you in another video. Bye.